Compassion fatigue is real. Let's talk about the uncomfortable fact. If you've been following war-related news for the last couple of years, you're probably exhausted. So how do we keep going? I've been in the digital activism space for the last 4 years. I worked as a social media manager for a Ukrainian fundraising organization from 2022 to 2024, translating war into content that would go viral. I also used my own platforms to raise awareness and run fundraisers, and I currently work at the Ukrainian Cultural Center in Toronto. I know that at some point, when you care deeply, something shifts. It's not that you stop giving a damn. It's just that you spread yourself so thin emotionally for such a long time that it feels like you've gone numb. You can't keep feeling everything at the same time all the time. This isn't going to be a neat and simple, do these 5 steps and, you'll get the energy to keep going type of video. But at least I invite all of us to think out loud about how do you keep going while taking care of yourself, taking care of your community, and preferably without burning out. For the purposes of this video, I put together 2 letter size papers and I just flipped them together and made them into a book. Put one inside the other one. And we're gonna use this guy to just write down some ideas and think out loud. In the last couple of months, I noticed increasingly more that I drifted away from going on social media. My social media feed became an extremely wild amalgam of people's vacations, life highlights, brain rot memes, and announcements of new wars, distressing photos of people under the rubble, and you name it. Today is 2026, and in 2022, the full-scale invasion started in my country. I'm Ukrainian. I've been living in Canada for the last 12 years, and when the full-scale invasion started in Ukraine, I was visiting my parents, who live there to this day. I lived through the experience firsthand. We're not gonna go into too much detail on it, but I guess I think everyone can understand that your life really does split between before and after when you wake up from the sound of explosions for the first time, and then you spend a couple of days in the bomb shelter when, you never done that before. Big life update. Getting this kind of onrush of information in one scroll would make anyone feel disoriented. It's just too many things that are triggering our emotions and our attention within a very short span of time. When I got back to Toronto, I was anxious to find a job that would allow me to have connection with my country and allow me to help in any way that I could. This is how the digital activism era started. From April 2022 till June 2024, I worked as a social media for St. Javelin.
This is St. Javelin. She's the unofficial saint of the Ukrainian resistance against the Russian invasion, a reimagined image of the Virgin Mary holding a weapon of war.
St. Javelin, a social enterprise created by Canadian journalist Christian Boris, started simply as an attempt to raise $500 to help Ukraine.
St. Javelin is a Canadian-Ukrainian brand that raises money for charities through memes and merchandise. My job was essentially translating war content into the language that would be accessible for Western audiences. I would have tabs open from all the major American publications, along with Ukrainian Telegram channels, where I would get almost hourly updates of everything that was happening. And my job was to analyze and summarize, and better yet, put an original spin on it so you could memify it so that the content would essentially go viral. And if you know anything about online content spreads better when it hits emotional triggers. We're talking about fear, rage, sympathy, moral urgency. It's the content that would spread the most and would drive most traffic to our page and let people know that we also had fundraisers going on at the same time. And sometimes people would get on our page because they saw a particular video and then they would decide to stay because they saw that we were fundraising for an armored car, for IFACs, tactical medicine, or warm clothes and generators for people on the front line in the winter. My phone became a kind of a Schrodinger's experiment. Anytime I would pick it up, I didn't know if the next news update would give me some hope or if it will completely crush me. In the beginning, I thought that consuming so much distressing content online wasn't affecting me as much because I'm a tough person, right? Like I was okay watching graphic movies. I could take in a lot of disturbing information up until at a point, couple of months in, I started to see corpses in my dreams and I got physically ill after reading people's accounts of abuse and torture. The other physical symptoms of entering what I will refer to a kind of a burnout was getting extreme brain fog from scrolling the feed the entire day. I would have my heart racing. I started getting jaw tension, which never happened to me before. And my behavior was reinforced by the very real fact that we were contributing to the cause. In the first year of St. Javelin, we raised over $2 million just from the merchandise that we sold. There is a surreal aspect of working as a social media manager. I feel like that applies to all social media managers, but especially when you're doing this particular kind of social media reporting. I knew factually that my actions were contributing to a good cause, but in reality, I was just there on my computer or on my phone, just sort of sending things into the void. And then came the breaking point. Essentially, I started noticing that I was starting to push the time when I check the news updates to later into the day. At work, I would focus on designing our newsletters or on branding, on restructuring our business. I would essentially try to shield myself from everything related to the social media world because semi-consciously I knew that was distressing to me. And that led to even more guilt. I knew it wasn't working out, but I didn't have the guts to admit it yet. And that's why I feel like I spent some time in the company, probably my last half a year or so, quiet quitting. My body was quiet quitting the intense state of emergency that it was in. I had to change something. I knew that if I wanted to be engaged in the long run, I had to come up with more sustainable strategies on how to keep going, even though, there's no neat strategy on how to keep going when you're going through the war. And so I quit. Leaving digital activism professionally didn't mean that the war has stopped. My family was still there. My friends were still there. None of it stopped being a part of my world. My background is in psychology. I wanted to become a psychotherapist. And one of the ways that I was able to find practice was in 2019, I apprenticed at the military hospital, a hospital in Kiev where most of the patients are military personnel who are going through treatment. After I left my role in the summer of 2024, I went to Ukraine and I did something that I did back in 2019, which is shadowing clinical psychologists at the clinic and doing unstructured intake interviews to sort of gauge how much support a person needs. I spent my time interviewing patients. Some of them were my age, some of them lost their limbs, all of them were mobilized military personnel actively in service defending my country. I think that was the most challenging and yet the most rewarding experience of my life, specifically because of that immediate feedback that you get from a conversation of what you're putting into the conversation with the person. This reignited my passion and my interest for psychology and psychotherapy. And as I said, online everything felt abstract. But in the walls of the military hospitals, everything was real. When I came back to Toronto, I started working at the Ukrainian Cultural Center, where I'm actually currently filming this video. I continued to be involved in cultural programming in Toronto, essentially connecting creatives and giving them platform, helping with community programming, working with people who have moved from Ukraine recently, and also with Ukrainian Canadian diaspora. I was journaling a lot about things that keep me going and things that give me hope, but hope not in an abstract way, but in a way that I sort of redefined it for myself, and I started to treat it as discipline of perseverance, grit. I don't know. It's like a practice of optimism. I have a chance to work with a lot of younger students, Ukrainian students who moved from Ukraine recently. And the students and the future that they symbolize give me a lot of hope because I see how bright they are. I see how much energy they have, the energy that I, as an aging zillennial, don't possess anymore. When my mind goes to the darkest place of feeling like my country will cease to exist, everything will be occupied, I'll have nowhere to come back to. I look at my culture's diaspora here, I look at the Ukrainian diaspora here, and I see how well they were able to preserve the tradition and the language. I've spoken to people who have never been to Ukraine or who have only been to Ukraine maybe like for a couple of days throughout their lifetime, and we spoke Ukrainian. And that shows me I can preserve my language, I can preserve my history, and it is up to me to get myself educated. Making things like making the draft for this zine, making art, seeing people make art as the sublimation of the way that they feel throughout this experience, seeing how art makes us come together and how it serves as a universal language that allows us to stay relevant. The kindness of my friends and allies who not only contributed to my fundraisers throughout the years, but also people who have supported me personally, people who listened to my story, people who were ready to accept me as, you know, a downer in certain conversations. Understanding that I have been able to surround myself with community that doesn't make me feel like I need to change or censor myself is so valuable. And then my final point is understanding that it's up to me to create reasons for hope. I realized I don't get my hope from the news. I don't get my energy to keep going from the geopolitics that I don't have direct effect on. What really helped was zooming my attention into the things that I can directly influence. The people that I know, the place where I work, the city where I live. This is my sphere of influence. This is where I can make things happen. After 4 years of this kind of work, I realized that compassion fatigue doesn't mean that you stop caring. It means that you kept your attention on things that are dysregulated to your system for long enough without rest that you can't keep going. What we tend to do is conflate cognitive and physical burnout with moral failing, when in reality what you need is to take care of yourself and get yourself to the point that you're able to engage with the pressing matter with mental clarity and ability to take care of your community and focus on problems at hand, things that you can actually change, things that you can influence. The solution here is not getting disengaged. It's not caring about everything forever. It's about how you personally can find way to keep going without turning to stone.